I came home from a business trip expecting to hear the waves crashing against the shore and feel the peace I had worked years to earn. Instead, I found a stranger's house. The mailbox no longer had my name on it. It had my parents' names. Family portraits covered the walls where my photographs used to hang. My furniture had been rearranged. Even the master bedroom, my bedroom, was no longer mine. When I confronted my father, he barely looked up. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Relax, Elena. This is our retirement home now. Our retirement home. Not my beach house. Not the home I spent years building. Not the dream I sacrificed everything for. Their retirement home." I stood there speechless. Because every dollar that paid for that house came from me. Every mortgage payment. Every late-night project. Every sacrifice. And yet somehow my parents had convinced themselves that what belonged to me now belonged to them. What they didn't know was that I had already reached my limit. And before this was over, I was going to teach them a lesson they would never forget. My name is Elena, and this is how my parents tried to take my dream beach house. To understand why that moment hurt so much, you need to understand what that house meant to me. I was 34 when I finally bought my dream beach house in Malibu. It wasn't inherited. It wasn't gifted. Nobody helped me pay for it. Every dollar came from years of hard work. I started as a freelance photographer, taking any job I could find: weddings, corporate events, product shoots. There were months when I barely paid my rent. But eventually, I built a successful online business teaching visual storytelling. For years, I worked weekends, holidays, and late nights while everyone else was enjoying life. That beach house wasn't just a property. It was proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. The white walls, the wide ocean-facing window, the wooden deck where I dreamed of watching sunsets in peace, it was mine. My victory. My sanctuary. The weeks that followed shattered me in ways I still struggle to describe. I tried talking to them gently at first. "Mum, Dad, this is my home. I love having you here, but I need space too. Maybe we can plan visits better?" Mum's eyes filled with tears instantly. "After everything we've done for you? We raised you, sacrificed, and now you want to kick us out of the one place that brings us peace in our old age?" "Your father's heart," she let the sentence hang like a weapon. Dad leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You don't understand, Elena. Everything we have belongs to family. One day this house would have been ours anyway. We're just moving that timeline forward." Their words twisted like knives. Every memory I had of them, birthdays, holidays, their struggles, suddenly felt reframed. Had they always seen me this way, as someone who owed them forever? One afternoon, I walked into my office and froze. Mum was sitting at my desk. My private financial statements were spread across the table. Retirement accounts, savings, business records, everything. She looked up casually. "Good news," she said. "You can easily afford the kitchen renovation." "What renovation?" "The one we're planning after we move in permanently." That was the moment something inside me died. A few days later, my phone rang while I was editing photos. It was my neighbour, Mrs. Alvarez. "Elena, congratulations," she said. "For what?" There was a pause. "Your parents told everyone they finally retired and moved into their beach house." My stomach dropped. Their beach house? That's what they've been telling people. I ended the call and just stared at the wall. They weren't acting like guests anymore. They weren't acting like family. They were acting like owners. One weekend I returned home unexpectedly. The driveway was packed with cars. Music was playing. Laughter echoed from the deck. More than 20 relatives were gathered around my house. Nobody had asked my permission. Nobody had even informed me. When I confronted Mum, she smiled. "It's just a family gathering." Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Everyone wanted to see our new place. I felt invisible. Erased. The emotional toll was devastating. I started having anxiety attacks before driving up to the house. I avoided my own home. Nights were the worst, lying in the guest room that now felt like enemy territory, listening to them laugh and plan improvements as if I wasn't even there. I questioned everything. Was I selfish? Ungrateful? The little girl inside me who just wanted her parents to be proud kept whispering that maybe they were right. But the woman I had become the one who built this life from nothing knew better. I quietly consulted a lawyer. The house was solely in my name. I had every legal right, but confronting them felt like tearing my own heart out. These were the people who raised me, the ones who held me when I was sick, the ones I had loved unconditionally. The pain was suffocating, but beneath it something new was stirring. A quiet strength, a resolve I didn't know I possessed. They had taken my trust, my peace, my sense of safety. But they would not take my home. I planned it carefully, not out of rage, but necessity. I hired a moving company for a day I knew they'd be out visiting friends. I changed the locks. I packed their belongings with trembling hands, every photo, every piece of clothing, every reminder they had ever been there. I left a single envelope on the kitchen counter. When they returned that evening, I was waiting on the deck with my lawyer and a police officer present just in case. Dad shoved the new lock. Once, twice, then harder. Nothing moved. His face turned red. "Open this door." Dad shouted, "You can't do this." I looked him straight in the eyes and said calmly, "Being my parents gave you access. It never gave you ownership." He opened the envelope. Inside was a formal notice from my attorney. His hands started shaking. For the first time since this nightmare began, he realised he had lost. Mum's voice cracked. "Elena, what have you done?" I stood tall, the ocean wind in my hair, and for the first time in months, my voice didn't shake. "I loved you both more than anything. I gave and gave because I thought that's what family does. But you didn't see me as your daughter. You saw me as a bank, a free vacation home. You tried to steal the one thing I built for myself. This house is mine. It was never yours." The aftermath was painful. There were angry calls, guilt trips, even some family members taking their side. For weeks I felt hollow, but every morning I woke up in my own bed, walked onto my deck, and breathed in the ocean air that belonged to me again. I started hosting small photography retreats for women rebuilding their lives. I filled the house with laughter that felt honest. Months later, Mum reached out. She was softer. Dad too. They had found a modest apartment. The distance forced them to see me differently. We're working on a new relationship now, one with boundaries. It's not perfect, but it's real. The beach house is still mine today. Every morning I wake up to the sound of the ocean. Every evening I watch the sunset from the deck I fought to keep. The difference is that now I feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, because the most powerful revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's refusing to let them take what you've worked your entire life to build. And sometimes the strongest word you'll ever say is simply enough. If you're watching this and someone is slowly taking pieces of your life, your boundaries, your joy, remember this: you are allowed to say enough. You are allowed to protect what you've built. Family is important, but so is your soul. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Until next time, take care of your heart and your home.